Dangerousness hearings determine if a defendant should be held behind bars pre-trial. We spent weeks digging into this controversial debate. Survivors I spoke with said changes need to happen to save lives.
We're part of the Commonwealth, and so are my kids. You know, we just want to be okay.
Survivors of domestic violence speaking out, not because they want to, but they tell me they have to. We're not identifying them out of concern for their safety.
And I hear that from people, why don't you leave? And I'm like, I did. The threats would start, you know, get rid of me, hurt my children, my family, and at that point, they have control over you.
This woman, whom we'll call Marie, says her perpetrator was accused of violently assaulting her and 2 other women in the same year.
Contacted the courts, contacted the police, and I said, I'm gonna die. I went in for the protection order. They put out the warrants. They picked him up.
But she says he was never held for a significant amount of time until her case, when prosecutors asked for a dangerousness hearing, and the judge locked him up as the case went through the courts.
Do you think that saved your life?
Yeah, I believe it kept me safe.
The other survivor we're calling Colleen says she was in a similar pattern.
It's the same act over and over again until I lose, almost.
These stories bother us. These stories stay with us.
Former GOP Governor Charlie Baker pushed to expand the use of dangerousness hearings. Baker wanted in part to hold people indefinitely until trial and to fingerprint everyone arrested. But the approach was widely criticized as too broad, and critics said it would land even more Black and Hispanic people behind bars.
People are punished while they're presumed innocent and relieved of punishment at the time when the government is to prove that they're guilty. The system has to change.
Defense attorney Morad Erkan says the hearings create a lot of pressure for defendants to plead guilty and for judges to hold people in the name of public safety. Still, some lawmakers on Beacon Hill are pushing for compromise.
What can we do to protect those people and those individuals from violent individuals across the Commonwealth?
Judiciary Committee member and GOP State Rep Allison Sullivan Almeida wants an expansion of crimes eligible for dangerousness hearings. Right now, courts can hold people accused of felonies involving actual, attempted, or threatened physical force, violating restraining orders, and certain drug trafficking crimes for as many as 300 days before trial, sometimes longer. For Sullivan Almeida, the issue is personal.
They knew that if he got out in those 120 days, after those 120 days, he was going to kill me.
She, too, is a survivor of domestic violence. She's pushing for courts to notify victims 24 hours before a defendant is released.
Whether it be from police custody, from the courts, or from the jails.
She also wants to make additional crimes eligible, including more sex crimes against children, and to make the cutting of a GPS bracelet a felony. We asked Judiciary Committee Chair State Rep Michael Day, a Democrat, if there might be some common ground.
The list that was offered from the previous administration was huge. We see opportunities here to increase or to include, I should say, certain crimes that I think nobody would quibble with.
Colleen is part of a victims group urging lawmakers to act.
We just wanted that conversation of what can we do if you don't agree with this.
While working on this story, 25 Investigates heard concerns that dangerousness hearings disproportionately involve Black and Hispanic suspects. Ahead, I'll break down the data we uncovered showing significant racial disparities. Plus, we'll hear from a man who spent a year locked up pre-trial about how it impacted his life. As we continue our discussion about dangerousness. For 25 Investigates, I'm Carrie Kavanaugh.